All right. Tell us a little bit about your career and your name.
Well, let's start with the name. That's the easiest. James Hunt. As far as, but you can call me Jim if you want to.
All
Well, my
right.
mother always called me James. Anyway, uh, my career, I guess you would describe it as an entrepreneur. I ended up having three businesses, and then later in life, I taught college for 10 years.
So, did you have a plan to be an entrepreneur from the beginning?
Absolutely not. Uh, My undergraduate degree was at Ohio State, and exactly like the interview with Steve Miller, I have the same degree he does, communications. So my first job out of college was I worked for Channel 6 in Columbus, Ohio, and I was a documentary filmmaker and did filming for the news department, sports department, and all that kind of stuff. Ended up going into found out that was disillusional. They didn't have me do what they had promised, as all young people will find out when their first job, it doesn't turn out to be the dream that you had. But anyway, from there, I went to be in an actuary firm so I could make a living. And I'd gotten married and I had to put food on the table. And lo and behold, my wife's father, my father-in-law, approached me one day and said, "Hey, how'd you like to come up to Elyria, Ohio and be in the business?" And I said, "What's the business?" I didn't know a thing about it. Well, they had a small building supply business. So I went up. I didn't know the first thing about brick or block or any of that kind of stuff, but I learned. And so my career was mostly there for almost 40 years. So when I entered the company, it was family owned. We went 125 years in business. And when I first started, it was $500,000 a year in business, and I grew it to 10 million and spread out, and we had three businesses that we spun off from that.
Now, at Ohio State, I also was a BA. So, communication degrees are pretty flexible. You can do so much with a communications degree. But to be an entrepreneur, would it not be more accepted to have like a business background or something like that?
Yeah,
What
yeah,
kind of training do you think someone who
true,
wants to be an entrepreneur would pursue?
true. And the communication, my degree, I learned how to write. That would be like uh, TV or radio journalism was more my thing. So I learned how to write in the communication department that way. And then I got real interested in film, so that's why I went in that direction. But after I got to work and I was there, I'd say well, actually, it'd been 5 years. I went to get my MBA after I'd gone to work. And the program that I was in, the MBA program, the requirement was you had to have 5 years of working experience before they would let you in it. Many programs don't have that. And I am very thankful I got in that program because everything that I learned applied towards the business. It was no longer just taking courses, take courses to get through to get your degree. Everything I was taking the MBA was to learn something to be able to run a business better.
So, what kind of person becomes a good entrepreneur? Like, is there a specific type of personality set for
Well,
someone who?
funny you should say that because later on I actually taught two entrepreneur courses at college, besides the macroeconomics, a beginning course and then one where we did pro formas for people that already own businesses that they wanted to expand it. What are your criterias? Well, you got to be able to obviously everything that you would do in business. You got to be able to manage people, and communications is a big deal about it. You got to understand business, accounting, which is the language of business. You don't know where you are and where you're going and how you stand, so you have to do that. But dealing with people every day, I think that's true with almost any job is how do you deal with people? How do you treat them? How do you get, if you're going to be a leader, how do you get them to follow you? Where are you going? What are you doing? What's your plan? And you have to be a risk taker. And a good entrepreneur, there isn't a one that doesn't wake up in the middle of the night with a cold sweat and saying, I wonder how I'm going to make payroll this week. So that's the criteria of being an entrepreneur.
Because you need all of those backgrounds that can play into your success, do most people do something first before they become an entrepreneur? You don't really jump into being an entrepreneur straight away. How would you have all of that experience?
Well, if you look at a lot of businesses, it's because they had a skill set. Um, they were good at a particular thing, and then they decided to go off into business into that. And what I always also do is basic marketing is the mistake that people make is they think, well, I have this idea, I'm going to go with it and make lots of money. It's what you got to do is find the need. What do people want? And how are you going to fill that need? And then it works. Not you trying to create something and then go out and create a need. That doesn't happen. The need has to be there and you have to be able to fill it.
Right. And definitely a risk taker, but you have to be cautious. At the same time, are there people out there that are willing to advise young entrepreneurs if they want to step out and get out from under the protection of a corporation and go off on their own? How does someone make
Yeah,
those?
absolutely. And it doesn't, you don't, what that was one of the things after I retired, I did what's called SCORE, which is it's actually for people that have been in business and have retired, and you help young entrepreneurs on looking at what they're doing and try to coach them and get them to think, get them to work through the process of what they need to do to get to where they want to get to.
Rotary was very helpful for me when I started my business, and I also engaged with SCORE. Actually, it's funny that you say that. Um, So, what one piece of advice would you give someone who thinks they have that risk tolerance and the personality to take something on down the road? What kind of preparation do they do before they make that jump? Do they establish themselves in a career first?
Yeah, I would never advise somebody to just one day just start with a business. I think that you should work for somebody else. Find out about that business, mentor it. It'd be like how we used to do it hundreds of years ago. You had apprenticeships. You worked for somebody, you learned the trade, and then you went from there and went off on your own. I think that's important. You need to know every aspect of it. If you're going to go into a company, don't be put in one slot. Learn everything about that company you can. Ask questions. And people that have been in there and have done it, they want to help you. All you got to do is ask. If you show an interest in anyone, and that was one of the great things about my career was grandfather had been around, and I mean, he was the ultimate in an entrepreneur. Have you ever heard of the Ridge Tool Company? It's one of the Fortune 500. He was one of the four people that started that.
Wow.
And they want to share with you. They want to tell you how to do it and what to look out for and how to be successful.
So, Jim, would you be willing to be available to a student if they find this video on our Rotary Club website? Would you be willing to talk with them?
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah,
Well, I
and the other
appreciate.
advice I would give is, I think is a mistake is you need to know when it's time to change. Give it up. If something doesn't work, don't dig a bigger hole. A bigger shovel doesn't get you where you want. Come up with something else. Be able to leave it. We become the personalities of our business, particularly the American male. And we're the only country who does this. If you talk to somebody, you meet me, within 5 minutes of the time that we meet, you ask me, what do you do?
Yes.
And you don't mean to me, do you coach baseball? Do you volunteer for Rotary? You want to know, what do I do to make a living? And for the American male, it's, if my business is doing well, I'm a good person. If it's
That's
not doing well, I'm a loser. And you have to get over it. If something doesn't work, go to something else and figure it out.
that is great advice. Know when to move on. And don't let it crush you. Just keep moving, right?
Right, exactly.
All right. Well, you've been so helpful. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
All
And happy
right.
trails to you until we meet again.